Bum. We got Jeremy Booth in studio this time for another Extra Bases with Bristol and Booth. What are you writing, Jeremy?
I'm doing my math.
You're doing math. Okay.
Math. I'm trying to figure out pace.
Pace.
Yeah, it's not quite what it was a few days ago.
Oh, are you talking about Yordan Alvarez's
You
pace?
call pump the brakes here before it was pump the brakes.
That's right.
I thought it was kind of like.
Where's the sound effect? There it is.
Okay, so we pump the brakes on that pace. That's what I'm doing here. Kind of bringing it back to, because I hate to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to be that guy. I really don't hate to be that guy. I actually kind of like being that guy because, there's something that we use in sports, Jason. I don't know if you've heard of this. It's called a scoreboard. And like if you put a big scoreboard up and you put you and I as far as being correct, and then like literally 98% of the people that are out there in our sphere. How's that? Is that good? That was good. Okay. That sphere. You're wrong. You're not correct. That's the opposite of right. There'd be us, and then there'd be like not us. Is that one way of putting it? Right? There's people around the game that listen to us, that watch us, that like us, because they compliment us around the country.
Yeah.
And then there's people who just can't get out of the math book. Don't know what to say. Doesn't matter what sport you're covering, Jason. Let me finish. It doesn't matter what sport you're covering. It doesn't matter if it's baseball. It doesn't matter if it's soccer. It doesn't matter if it's and we don't have one of these teams here, but a hockey team. You know what else? You know what else?
Wish we did.
It doesn't matter if it's basketball. Because when you're talking about what has gone on in this thing that we really talk about, which is extra bases, right? Not extra 3-pointers, right? Not extra touchdown passes, extra bases. It's baseball. So I'm just doing my math. And I do my math all the time. I have my own stats and analytics.
But Jeremy, what about this idea that Yordan Alvarez batting second out of, say, the top 200 problems with the Astros right now, that's maybe number 201? Yeah.
I would say,
and I think it's certainly a valid argument that right now the pitching is much more of a concern.
So I didn't get a chance to rank it.
Okay.
Right. But I will say that
I didn't have time either.
Yeah. I feel like I got my Derek Jeter, his thing on. I heard about it. I'm not sure how my name got in it, because I know how my name got in it. But what I am going to say is, I'll say this. The Astros have a lot of issues across the board. If the pitching is hurt, which is what it is, it's hurt. It's not healthy. Then it puts more pressure on the offense to be right. So what was that? Was it 201? Was that the number? It's 1 and 2. Which one you want to pick that day? I don't know, but it's 1 and 2. The offense is wrong. The pitching is wrong. That's really it, because the defense is fine, right?
At times.
Okay, so if we're picking the ball up and executing, for those of you at home that don't know what that means catching and throwing your cross. In baseball, we call it pick it up and execute. I know that's 101. That's baseball 101 today. We can do some of that too. But when it gets into a place of, what's that line from Bull Durham? This is a simple game. You got to throw the ball, you hit the ball, you catch the ball. You got it? Same thing. Okay? And so if you're not going to throw the ball right, you're not going to hit the ball right. That was 1 and 2 right there. So on a scale of 1 to 201, it's either 1. It's either 1. Okay, it's 1 to 2. It's 1 or 2. I don't care which one it is. 1 or 2. That's all you got.
It's interesting. I was thinking as I was scrolling through X yesterday, somebody asked about the end of the Warriors dynasty, and someone mentioned, what is it about seeing a fan base happy for the better part of a decade that makes so many people elated when the joy then turns to sorrow when the run ends, like it inevitably does every time? And Bomani Jones wrote, because without fail, it turns from simple elation to a bunch of blank holes.
Yep.
And then the comments underneath, it's almost as if unparalleled success warps people in every single field in every era throughout history. That was another response. Another one said that fan base can never just be happy for their guys. It always turns into, we would have beat the 72-10 Bulls, and Showtime ain't got nothing on us. And then this one really, these two really struck me. It's always this stuff about lineups. Spurs fans were the same way. There was some amount of minutes Lonnie Walker wasn't getting that would have put the DeRozan teams into deep playoff runs. And reading those and seeing what is going on with the Golden State Warriors right now, it was almost like, wow, that sounds a lot like what we hear on a daily basis from a number of the fans of the hometown nine.
Yeah, you know, when you're when things aren't going well, and I kind of watch, you know, we both watch.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much any individuals, because most of y'all avatars, so you don't really know who's behind what. You know, Jason, you're out there, you're you.
Yeah.
I'm out there, I'm me.
Yes.
Most of the other people are like, again, I said last, fictional characters, fictional characters, and you don't really know who's saying what. What I can say is that in Boston, when they won in 2004, and I'll say this for the Red Sox, and it was kind of the beginning of that Patriots era. It was right at the beginning of even the Bruins won that year. Celtics were good for a minute. When the Red Sox won, those fans turned from some of the best fans in the game to some of the most insufferable fans in the game. Everything was Red Sox and you're terrible and we're the best. And it's not that way. It's your moment in the sun. Now, I understand when you haven't won before. And let's be honest, Houston hasn't really won before now, you know, it's for this last little run. Rockets were good, different points, but they really haven't won. And so I get that there's a lot of the we're number one, Houston over everybody. I mean, like I said, you know, I got Space City tattooed in the back of my arm here. Like I love the town, I love the city, but it doesn't give you an excuse to be nasty and mean to people. And it doesn't give you an excuse to be nasty and mean about the players. It just means that you have to be honest about it. You want to be good fans, you want to be knowledgeable, like pay attention to what's going on and realize that you have a lot to offer your team here by being knowledgeable about it. You don't just want to go on and start spewing venom. Now, with that said, a lot of fans think that's their right.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all right. I think they can go out and say what they want. What I would say to you guys is it doesn't bother anybody. It just makes you look bad. Just makes you look bad. It's okay to be disappointed, but you know, you want to be good fans and you want to be for the long haul. You have to really kind of be understanding of what's really going on with your teams.
And I would argue that it's probably a small minority when you look at the whole overriding number of baseball fans in the city of Houston. When you put them all together, say in downtown Houston, it would probably be less than 10%.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
That vocal minority.
Well, I walked around the stadium and I saw quite a few people that were very friendly and very happy and good baseball fans. And, you know, some of the takes are just, you know, I'll be honest, you know, I went on a block party, you know, about a year ago. And I went on a block party because
I've read that people believe you're soft because of that.
Well, they're welcome to see me face to face and talk to me in person and figure that out if they want to. But what I would say to that is, and please play that. Like that's a clip that I think I want you guys to hear. If you think I'm soft, just come talk to me. Come talk to me. We'll have a one-on-one conversation. You can figure that out there. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to put up with avatars and nastiness and BS that doesn't deserve a response. That's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to do that online. If you want to do that one-on-one, man, at least I can look at you in the eye and you can do that. I'm not going to do that on Twitter or X or whatever the heck else we're going to call it tomorrow. What I am going to say is I went on a block party a while ago because there was basically like it was like a gaslight fest that was incited over something that never happened. And that's just not worth my time. I'm sorry. It's not worth my time. And I'm the type of guy that I'll say what's on my mind. Jason, would you say that's a fair statement? And I don't really back down from anything. Sometimes it's probably I should at different points and walk away. Jason's done a good job trying to keep me calm.
I typically tell him just walk away. It's not worth it.
But I don't do you know, for me, some things that happen in my world that I grew up in, they have consequences. And so the best consequence I could come up with to walk away from it was just to block it. So I did. That night was fun. You know how many people I blocked that night? I'm happy to tell you.
Yeah.
About 900.
900?
I just blocked them all. Anybody that was following this one dude that was commenting, block. Now, since then, I've gone back over and unblocked most of them. Okay. And I just hit the mute button because I don't care because the nastiness is subsided.
Yeah.
Personal stuff we're not going to do. I'm not going to do the personal stuff. You don't deserve access to me if you're going to be personal, especially if I don't know you. So, Yes.
But speaking of access, you walked around the stadium the other day.
Yep.
And during our last podcast, which again, I usually post a small tease, a snippet. It's not the entire thing. And it was, hey, you don't like what I'm saying? That's fine. Don't agree with me? You're entitled to that. Want to come talk to me? If you see me, stop me.
That's right.
And that's what happened.
That's what happened. A couple guys stopped me and they asked some questions and they understood what I was getting at. You know, it's
And I don't know if they agree with you, but I think now they have a little bit more of an understanding.
well, it's kind of hard to disagree when your team's 5-15.
6-14.
I'm sorry, 6-14. It's kind of hard to disagree at that point because something ain't right. And if the lineup was reorganized, this is all we were talking about when this started was the lineup. If the lineup was reorganized, you probably are 8-9-13, whatever they are. Yeah, 9-11. I mean, I think there's several times in games that haven't been blowouts or high scoring games for the Astros that there was one at bat or one pitch sequence or one guy at the plate at the wrong time where the game turns the other way with the right guy at the plate. I think that where we run into trouble, and this is an analytics problem, okay, this is why you need baseball and the analytics side to work together, is that people tend to think that because Jason Bristol is a human being and Jeremy Booth is a human being, that we are built exactly the same and can do the same thing. You know where you get that? Video games. You get that in video games like MLB The Show.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you get video
Sure.
games. You get that. And so you start figuring out, you start thinking everybody's the same because you get on this creative player mode. I used to do it too. I was a kid. We were all kids. Used to build this creative player video game, build my own rosters, played GM at 13 years old. And then all of a sudden I turned around and got a chance to do it for real, assigning players and building rosters. It's not even close. It's just not close. One's fantasy, one's real. And because I never stayed in a Holiday Inn Express, because I'm a Marriott guy, okay, I didn't understand that mindset. So when I look at what has gone on with this club and I look at where they've been and we go back to the scoreboard, we've got 7 years of this now. This isn't like 1 week. This is 7 years of going back to the scoreboard. Jason and I have very clear examples of where we've been correct and the whole city's lost their mind. Okay. And I think tonight we might go over a couple of them. So what I say it again. Teams 6-14. Verlander's back Friday. Jason posted earlier what we talked about, him and Zach, as far as what that was going to expect. You know, Valdez is starting to play catch, correct? You know, you've got some guys that are coming back. I don't think the pitching is as big a concern as people think. Urquidy and Garcia are throwing bullpens now. It's working back to where it's going to be. It doesn't change the fact that you got a couple outs in the lineup. And if you have guys like Jake Myers, he's an out. If you have guys like Abreu, let's be honest. Abreu at this point is an out. He's an out. I'm missing somebody else down there. Caratini, we can't count on Caratini, right? If he's playing a Diaz is in the 5 hole or the 5 spot, that's an inning.
But how is that any different than, say, last year when they had their struggles at home, and also that there were times, playoffs for one, that they didn't seem to get the clutch hit, the big hit when they needed it? Because that's what invariably some people will say.
Yeah, but Maldonado wasn't out, and you replaced that with Diaz, right? Diaz over Maldonado offensively is an upgrade. We all know that.
Sure.
Doesn't okay. You have other options to go to spell Abreu. You have other things you can do, and Dubon's got to play. So if Dubon's got to play, that's already 1 out gone over last year. If you take Jake Myers and run him out in center field, when the guy that couldn't make the postseason roster last year, I got questions. I want to understand what's going on. He's not with you when you want to win a championship, but he's your everyday guy. Help me understand that one. So my answer is that they're already 1 or 2 outs better in the lineup. They have an issue at first base. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. But the answer isn't to move Alvarez up to hit with nobody on base or basically give up a first inning at bat, even though I know you homered today. The answer is to put Alvarez in a place where him and guys like Tucker and Bregman, or even Diaz, so you want hitting with those type of guys coming up again and again and again, can drive the runs in. RBIs actually matter. The analytics crowd, people who teach math class to the example. I'm not going to say his name, but this one particular guy doesn't seem to believe RBIs matter. I've been in conversations when people said RBIs don't matter anymore. It's a lineup position stat. All right. Anybody else here had to do it? Any of those guys had to have the pressure to drive runs in? Do you know what it means to slow your heart down? Do you know what it means to center yourself, to pick a pitch out? Do you know what it means to give up on a bat? Professional hitting gives up at bats. It takes balls out over the plate that you can't drive, and you get ground balls in the middle of the field to move the runner over and score one. That's driving runs in. You know what that is? That's a point. Points win games. So I said it 2 weeks ago. And a couple of y'all decided to roast Jason and I over it, mainly me. I said, do you want to hit a guy in the 2-hole and hit a bunch of solo home runs like Aaron Judge and Ohtani? Did I miss the parades, or do you want to win? Because right now, 6-14, something ain't working. 20 games in, enough of a sample size for you? Okay.
I did make the mistake of posting one clip on the day that they scored 3 runs so that a number of people thought you were just speaking in general terms. Yeah. So I had to say, okay, this was actually recorded yesterday, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Here's what I've been hearing on Sports Talk Radio and seeing on social media. Please bring Jeff Luhnow back. Can we go back to this age of advanced analytics? We need Jeff Luhnow. He is the guy, the architect. We need him. Bring him back because he will right this ship. And I'm paraphrasing. Right now, part of what Jeff Luhnow did is the reason why the Astros are the way they are. Jeremy, I think we both know how hard it is to draft players. You've been in the room. You know what it's like. You've had guys that you were high on, they didn't make it. You've had guys that you were too low on, and they became an all-star.
Correct.
Paul Goldschmidt.
Correct. Brandon Belt.
Yeah.
Was light.
Jeremy, where do you typically find the most impact on draft day? Which rounds? Theoretically.
That would be the first 2 or 3 rounds, Jason.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, the Astros have swung and missed more often than not in rounds 1 and 2 when it comes to the draft. And because of that, that is why on some nights you have Christian Javier and the Space Cowboys for a pitching staff. Let's go back.
That is correct, Jason.
Let's go back and look at the numbers. 2013, first round draft pick, Mark Appel. Second round draft pick, Andrew Thurman, a catcher. The best pick in that draft, 2013, Tony Kemp. 2014, first round draft pick, number 1 overall as well. Again, Brady Aiken. I know what they'll say. I know what the people will say, but we'll get to that. Number 2 draft pick, I love Derek Fisher. Love me some Derek Fisher. Derek Fisher, second round pick, WAR of 0.2. After that, A.J. Reed. 2015, we know that was a great draft.
Sure.
2 players made it.
Sure.
2016, your number 1 overall pick, Forrest Whitley. Your second round draft pick, Ronnie Dawson. 2017, your first round draft pick, J.B. Bukauskas. Your second round draft pick, Joe Perez.
Who?
Joe Perez.
Oh.
2018, your first round draft pick, Seth Beer. Your second round draft pick, Jason Schrader. 2019, your first round draft pick, Corey Lee. Your second round draft pick, Gray Kessinger. Now I could go through all the wars and all that. 2014, actually 8 players have made the major leagues from that draft. Combined WAR of 17.5. 12.9 of that, though, more than half, has come from a player that did nothing for the Astros because he got dealt away. Ramon Laureano. So 8 players with a combined WAR of 5-ish. 2016, total WAR, 1.3. Yes, they had 8 players make the major leagues. Total WAR, 1.3. Best pick, Abraham Toro. 2017, 13 players have made the major leagues. That's pretty impressive for a draft. The best pick, Chas McCormick, 21st round. a WAR of 7.5. After that, you have Josh Rojas, Jake Myers, but out of those 13 players, a WAR of 11.9. 2018, the draft was saved by Jeremy Pena. The WAR, though, 9.1. He has 9.5, so Seth Beer is a minus 0.8. Now, I know what a lot of people will say. First of all, Brady Aiken, well, they didn't sign him. Well, they still drafted him, right? They didn't sign him, and that became Alex Bregman.
Anybody tells me that not signing Brady Aiken or drafting Brady Aiken was designed to punt the pick to get to Bregman the next year?
No.
Yeah.
And then in 2018, Seth Beer, and then 2017, JB Bukauskas. There's this crowd that will, and called you out on it, saying that you had, during that time, 2019, that the Astros had no prospects to make a big deal, and they turned JB Bukauskas and Seth Beer into Zach Greinke, 2 first-round picks. Now, Jeremy, I think the fact, first of all, it was more about getting Greinke's contract off the
Corbin
books.
Martin was in that trade too, right?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
But, Jeremy, if those first-round picks were that good, would they have traded both of them?
That's a big negative. You know, the Astros needed a starter, and the Arizona Diamondbacks are retooling and need to get rid of the money. That's what that deal was about. And I'll tell you this too, and I have this on very good authority. The key to that trade was Josh Rojas.
It was, and that was actually written in a Sports Illustrated article by Ben Wright.
Oh, it was? Okay. Mm-hmm. So the key to that trade was Josh Rojas. The
career WAR of 4.0. And I know WAR isn't the be-all, end-all, but it's a good measurement.
The scout that was responsible, pro scout, for that trade, okay, that was his guy. That was the one he wanted in that deal out of the system.
Well, on Arizona's side.
That's what he wanted out of the system, and that's what they got. And he's gone on to Seattle, and he's done okay, and he's certainly done better than those other guys. Bukauskas and Beer shared another distinction together. One of them was that they were first-round picks by the Astros, but the other one is that they both went to college early. They both left high school to go to college early. When you do that, you're telling me you don't have it up here.
That's your opinion.
No, well, it's played out over time. I mean, that's that you're telling me you don't have it up here. You're going to the safety and the comfort of school. Now, some people do it academically. Neither one of these two guys, that was what they were doing. They were going to go to college to take themselves out of the draft. The Astros have not drafted well.
In the first and second rounds, which is where your impact is, where you find the most impact. And to think that, and I know Jeff Luhnow deserves all the credit in the world from this chair for helping establish this golden era of baseball. He was amazing with trades.
Hang on. The Astros,
but
Jason,
look at the trades.
They haven't drafted well.
Look at the trade. Oh, I agree with you, but that's my whole point. Like, to think that like Jeff Luhnow coming back, he is part of the reason, his crew is the part of the reason why the Astros are in this predicament. You talk the average time for, say the average time for a player to get through the system is 3 to 4 years. These guys that are 16, 17, 18, 19, if they had done anything in those first 2 rounds, those guys would be in the big leagues right now, contributing and helping with the turnover of losing your Carlos Correas, Jeremy Pena aside, but your George Springers, Josh Reddick retiring or near the end, and you wouldn't be in this predicament because depth is a big, big problem for these Astros, especially pitching depth. And I would take it one step farther, Jeremy.
What's that?
I would take it one step further.
Which one is it? What step?
I think it's further.
Okay. Which step would that be?
So how would you characterize the use of analytics in the scouting of international prospects?
They're non-existent. All you really have is TrackMan.
Okay.
Because you can do that in complexes, but it's really non-existent.
And we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
The Astros, this golden era, the window may have closed a few years ago if it wasn't for Jose Urquidy, Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, Brian Abreu. And that's more traditional scouting.
So
and I'm not taking away. Listen, it all happened under Jeff Luhnow, so certainly he had something to do with that.
So hang on a second. Let's unpack that one. So in the scouting world, somebody's gonna get so mad at me. In the scout, I have a lot of friends, a lot of people I really love in the game, and I'm going to be very careful how I say this, but in the scouting world, when the focus of departments started to shift, there's a lot of really good evaluators who just found themselves a little bit out of place. Okay, as far
The
as
Astros department
across the game,
across the game.
and it wasn't because they deserved to be out of place, just because of the direction things happened, and no one got mad about it. By the way, that's just the way it went down. They were then put to the international side because you didn't have the same analytics, you didn't have college baseball, you didn't have any of that stuff. You had to go actually scout and evaluate. So the best evaluators, what you couldn't see on paper, went to go scout in Latin America more often than they stayed here. Not 100% of them, a lot of them. A lot of the guys that drafted big leaguers forever that way. A lot of guys that impact organizations forever that way. They also found themselves in Colombia, in the Dominican, or Venezuela, different places where they could take a guy like Christian Javier, who was after passed over player as an outfielder, and put him on the mound as a pitcher. You can't do that if you're looking at analytics in the spreadsheet. You have to be able to actually evaluate, like actually see it and feel it, right? And all the guys the Astros signed, to my knowledge, maybe wrong on one or two, in that group of Latin players was passed over, which is a great job because for me, as an evaluator, that's where I want to hunt. I don't want to hunt again, I do stuff in Latin America now, but if you're asking me what I'm signing, it's hard hanging $4 million on a 14-year-old. That's hard to do. But if I got to turn around and I got to go get a guy at 17 years old, he's got a good arm, it's 50 grand to sign him, 10 grand to sign him, 25 grand. Give me 10 of those. Give me 20 of those guys. I'll go sign those guys up because a couple of those guys are going to make it, and they're low-cost investments. So the Astros did a really good job in that area under Jeff Luhnow. Then they stopped doing it. And they shut it down. Just like when the pro scouts and Jordan Alvarez after 16 and 17, they shut that down too. Quentin McCracken, the guy that helped develop all these guys, he wasn't here anymore either. You got to start asking yourself what really went down. Now, Brent Ryder's books address a lot of it. And a lot of the stuff that came out.
Evan Drellick's?
Yeah. A lot of stuff that came out, Jason might have known ahead of time. Might have had some, call it insight into what was really going on. There's some stuff I found out too later that was like, really? But
it's hard when you only have one source.
Yeah, it's hard when you have one source. And it really wasn't the time to blow the cover off. My biggest issue with asking for Jeff Luhnow back is because you're asking back for the wrong reasons. People come into clubs in different eras. The guys that were here with Ed Wade and Bobby Heck, they came in here to build from the ground up, and they did it. Bobby Heck helped build something for this city that some people complain about him even getting credit for, which is it's arrogant is what it is to say that. The guy came in with a good group of evaluators, an excellent group of evaluators, and rebuilt this system and gave you a decade longer than he was here. Gave you 12 years of winning. And you got a problem with this guy getting credit for what he did? You know what else? When he was in Milwaukee before that, he did it there too. Helped the Brewers get to a place of winning. Because when I joined the Brewers on the evaluation side and the scouting side, they were just getting good. And you know who had just left there? Bobby Heck, come to Houston to be the scouting director here. Now look, I'm not gonna hide anything from you. Bobby Heck is a mentor of mine. He's an exceptional friend. I saw him recently. Great family, great people. Love the guy, would run through a wall for him. But it doesn't matter. That's emotional. What's factual is what he did to build this organization. Now, Jeff Luhnow came in and did an exceptional, and I mean one of the best jobs on record of moving pieces around and using advanced analytics at the major league level, which is where that stuff works, to trade prospects for assets to supplement. He also, at the time, had a group of pro scouts who were excellent too. And as soon as he was done with them, he got rid of them as well. Now, I don't expect you guys to care about that, and I'm certainly not bitter about my situation or other people that left. That's not what it is. That's a decision that Jeff made. It was the wrong decision. It was a ruthless and cutthroat decision, and it ruined a lot of people's lives, and that was intentional. Okay? I'm going to say it. That was intentional. It doesn't take away from what the guy did. I'm not mad because the guy was good at waiver claims and trades. He was excellent. I'm not mad because he put good people in place for player development like Quentin McCracken. But I'm not going to let people take that stuff away from what guys did, and that draft record proves it. Let's go back and look at Bobby Heck's draft record. Carlos Correa gets him. Lance McCullers, he gets him.
Is that Elias?
It's an overlap. Bobby's the director.
Okay.
He gets Dallas Keuchel. Guess George Springer. I can stop right there, right? Anything else? I mean, that's just 4 guys, and there are a lot more. He gets Adrian Hauser still pitching. So
to me, this idea that the Astros drafting this machine, it's just,
how about
yes,
Jason Castro?
They've done a great job. They've done a great job of finding guys in later rounds. But you cannot swing and miss in the first and second rounds every single year and expect to continue a dynasty. And here's proof of that, Jeremy. The Big Red Machine, pretty good. Let's look at some of those drafts.
That's one of the best runs of all time.
1971.
Okay.
Their first round pick, Mike Miley, did not sign. Second round pick, William Covert. Number of major league players signed and drafted, 2. WAR of 2.8. 1972, Larry Payne is their first round draft pick from Huntsville, Texas, ironically. Randy Wallace was their second round pick, did not sign. Their best pick was Ron Hassey, who did not sign. So 0 major leaguers in that group. By the way, Larry Payne, now a dentist in Indiana. I looked it up. 1973, number 1 pick, Brad Kessler, an outfielder. Number 2, Richard Jensen, left-handed pitcher. 1973 draft for the Reds, 0 major leaguers. Well, that they signed. Their best pick was a guy named Jay Howell. He lasted a pretty long time,
right,
but they didn't sign him. 1974, pitcher Steve Reed goes number 1. Not the Steve Reed that we are used to seeing from the 1990s. This guy topped out at AAA. Number 2 draft pick, second round, Mike Grace, third baseman. Did make the major leagues, however, a 0.0 WAR. That draft, though, best pick, Steve Henderson, played a long time, a WAR of 11.5. Ron Oster, second baseman. 6 players made the major leagues that they signed and developed from that draft with a WAR of 21.0. 1975, first-round draft pick. Here's a good one, Tony Moretto, outfielder. Second round pick, Frank Pastore. He did play a long time in the major leagues, and a WAR of 3.9. 3 major leaguers, WAR of 7.0. So when you look at the Astros first and second rounds and the Reds from the Big Red Machine, there's a lot of similarities, Jeremy, and they're not good ones, because guess what? Late 70s, it all starts crumbling.
It does.
For the Reds.
You know,
they trade Pete Rose. Tony Perez is aging out. Pete Rose was old. Johnny Bench stuck around till like 83, but wasn't the same. And that crumbled.
Joe Morgan was gone too, right?
Yes. And it wasn't until Eric Davis, Paul O'Neill, those guys come through the system. But again, you're talking all those drafts because a guy in 71 theoretically should be pushing the envelope in 1974, 75, 72, 75, 76. That is where we go through that replenishment, which we have seen to some extent here in Houston. But this idea that Jeff Luhnow was this master drafter, it's just not true. And for all the analytics people out there, the numbers are right here. They're right here, all on this page, baseballreference.com. I looked up every single one of them. And again, while he is deserving of so much credit, this idea that the Astros are some drafting machine is not accurate. And now what you're seeing from this team right now and what we will likely see in the next coming 2-3 years is proof of that. By the way, I love looking up all this stuff. But drafting is the hardest thing in professional sports. Hardest thing in professional sports. But again, you cannot have bad first and second rounds time after time after time after time. And yes, I know they spun some of these draft picks off in trades, but if they were really that good, would they have traded them? Because there's one guy that they would not part with, and he's currently manning right field, and that was Kyle Tucker. And yes, Forrest Whitley, for a long time, they wouldn't trade him either. But, I mean, he's a reliever at best, maybe. I mean, great fastball. Well, let me rephrase that. Throws hard.
Oh, sorry.
But, I mean, even Dana Brown has been saying he needs to tighten things up, and it's not a few things, in my opinion.
So, first of all, that's an excellent deep dive. I mean,
Analogy.
Yeah,
I did a lot of work on
that's
that.
pretty good.
We're at 37 minutes, so I hope people
Okay,
are
no, that and look, I mean, that's pretty good, and that's a lot of information that I didn't have as far as looking it back up, and that's a balance that's created, right? You have feel on this side, instinct, understanding, and you wouldn't quantify it.
Mhm.
You showed me what we talked about, and you found examples to support it. I'm going to go ahead and address that because that's right there. It's black and white. That's not anything that is inaccurate. It doesn't have emotion or feeling. Or it's true. I think that some people not only don't like the fact that those are actual comparisons and numbers. I think what they really don't like is the fact that I don't need them. I want that to support it. I want to hear it. I want to know it. I want to be better because of it. But I don't need them. I was, without the numbers behind it, I was saying this a pick at a time throughout the year. I was talking about their culture. I was talking about these things catch up to you. That stuff's gone, long gone. Culture's long gone. But the numbers and the fact that they didn't draft well, when a lot of y'all were screaming your heads off about it, kind of here now, aren't they? And I think what really gets some people who may talk or try to incite is the fact that you not only can you not see it, you can't even understand that. Jason just broke it down like a 30+ Emmy Award winner does.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't go that.
I mean, how many y'all got? You got, my man over here's got 30. I got zero. But you know what I got? I got big leaguers. I got a career. I got time in it that says that I know what I'm doing with it, and I continue to learn every single day. So between the two of us, that's kind of a tough group for you to kind of keep up with.
But imagine, like, if you have a chance.
I'm not done.
Okay.
So while you're over there citing all these things that you think you understand, while you have your Raisin Bran at your Holiday Inn Express the next morning, you got one guy who did the work, who's literally got trophies on the wall as to why that content's legit, as to what that means and how to interpret it, and somebody that's covered sports in many major markets and done it at an exceptionally high level. And you got somebody over here who wants all that information, but can tell you what a guy can do in a few pitches and swings. You know what that's called? Feel and experience. I can tell you what it is. I can tell you by watching a guy what role he's going to be. I'm not saying I'm right 100% of the time. Nobody is, but I can tell you. And I'm not patting myself on the back when I say this, but I'm pretty sure if you ask the people around the game who know me that don't have an emotional investment in this conversation, they'll tell you I've been right. So when you wonder what's going on with your team, because it is your team, it's Houston's team. They don't call it the Jeremy Booth Astros. They don't call it the KHOU Astros.
No.
They call it the Houston Astros. It's your team. It's not my team because I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I'm a mercenary. Let's get that out in the open. I'm not a fan. When you grow up in the game and you're around it and you change uniforms and you see what happens and you're not a fan anymore. Can't be. You're a mercenary. You guys are fans. There's your information. There's your comparisons. Better than I could have done it. I could just tell you they were declining and why and when. Those numbers tell you where, how to adjust it. That's what analytics is supposed to do. It doesn't say hit this guy second instead of third because he's got 18 more plate appearances. It says hit him third because he's comfortable, has a chance to have three guys on base at one point, depending who's hitting 9, 2 guys in the first inning, gets a chance to see the pitcher for a minute. It tells you give a guy a chance to have more run production opportunities. And the guys behind it have to balance it to lengthen it because it's not a one-guy game. And the way this has been going is Altuve, one-guy game. Alvarez, one-guy game. I know we had RBIs in bunches, but we're on that pace car like we're on the Indy 500, driving my pace, rolling my pace. What did Adam Sandler say? At a medium pace. 139 turn, 104 real fast. Oh, I'm sorry. Was it my math wrong? Whatever. Jason.
Well, their success in the back part of the draft 2018 with Jeremy Pena. Granted, third round. It's not back part, but good pick. In 17 with McCormick and Rojas and Jake Myers. Like, could you imagine if they, if not supplemented, but imagine if they kicked off with someone at least in the major leagues now? Like, I mean, injuries happen. I get it. And injuries happen to pitchers, but man, if they could have gotten anything in the first 2 rounds in any of those drafts, things might not look as bleak as they do at this point from a standpoint of 20 games.
The problem with analytics at that time was that they felt that every pick had to be that way. Okay. If you look at the successes of analytics in the draft, it's not the Whitleys who was taken on the spin rate and some TrackMan data. It's because of guys like this.
Chas McCormick.
That were Jake Myers, that were unearthed later. Technically, anything after the 8th round is kind of late in the draft. Okay.
Especially now.
There's middle rounds. People do, 9th round pick is a high draft. It's not a high draft.
No.
It's a draft. Okay. But when you look at guys like McCormick, Evan Gattis, who the Braves drafted years ago that don't really count for this one, Matt Adams with the Cardinals, those guys are going to be poster childs for me.
Goldschmidt
in the 8th round. I mean, those guys, Goldschmidt signed for $95,000. I took a guy in that same draft, gave him 3 times as much, he played in the big leagues in the 3rd round, but he wouldn't Paul Goldschmidt. Analytics can make you better. It's not the decision maker. Later in the rounds, it is, sure, because you're not having the impact tools. The guy has numbers and he has impact tools. He doesn't get past the 1st round. So this is what's happening to the team. It's an excellent work. This is what's going on. Okay. How are we referred to as a?
I think now we probably should wrap this up. No. Okay. We should really wrap it up because we're approaching 45 minutes and it's almost news time.
Okay.
And besides, some things really should be kept between us.
I'm just saying we're entertaining.
Yeah, we try to be.
We try to be.
Try to be.
And I think if you listen and you pay attention, you're gonna learn something. Reality is that that's excellent work. Tune me out if you want to. Go ahead, go back, listen to Jason, what he did, and you'll figure out what's going on with your team. And then go support him.
All right, everybody. For Jeremy, I'm Jason. Leave your comments below, and this is another Extra Bases here on KHOU, KHOU 11+, Facebook, Twitter, and of course YouTube. Until next time, have a good